So anyway, I jumped with Bill for a while and bought myself a PC at 32 jumps, paid $100 for it, red, white, and blue, and found out about these guys we called at that time the Aurora Boys. It was Louis Ogg, D920. What a nice guy. Paul Schley, Bob Ohm, Jim Bohr. Jim actually wasn't an experienced jumper at that point in time. Matter of fact, I was in the airplane with Jim when we put him out on his first 20-second delay. And his Joni Schlipp, Paul Schley's wife, was on the same load. And Paul and I did relative work. It was the first time Paul had ever been, he had a D license at the time. I was a student. I pinned him. After 3 shots, he slid a lot. It took me 3 shots at him to get him, and I got him. So that was Prairie Lake Hunt Club in central Illinois. Now that was on a 090 radial off of where we had the Nationals last year at 3.5 miles from Chicagoland, by the way. It's still there. It's a beautiful place. It's a little grass strip with a motel. And, of course, we all slept in one room. It saved money. But it had a pond so we could do water jumps, and we didn't have a target area. We were doing relative work. Who does target work when you're doing relative work? And we jumped there for a long time. And it was not a formal club. It's just we got together. The guy had an airplane. And it eventually died away, and I went up to Wisconsin, to East Troy. And so I was up visiting my sister in Milwaukee, and I came by the clubhouse going south, and I said, I had a rig in the back of the car, and I stopped and said, well, maybe I'll go and have a skydive. So I went in, and not only did I have one skydive, my beer. Oh, yeah, I gotta have a sip of beer here. I joined the club and reinvented you bet, redesigned their training system. They were jumping at the time, naturally, ripcord static lines with no RSL, and C9s and T10s and 24 flats on their chest with cape wells. And so Perry Stevens, I heard about out in California in the Stevens system that he had designed, and I converted all of the rigs at East Troy to direct bag static line and RSLs with a Stevens lanyard, which puts a cross connector on both front and rear main riser, and a line that comes down from the right riser and ties onto the chest reserve handle. Now, if you use this system, it's guaranteed to take out some teeth. If you have to cut away, you're going to get that handle as it goes by. We always told people that. We never actually had it happen. But that system worked really well, and it was before piggybacks and whatever. It was my first incursion into gear design and safety and training. In the meantime, I got to working with Jack Johnson, who was a master rigger over in Madison, Wisconsin. And Jack was also an instructor examiner. And I met Phil Getch, who was my true mentor. Phil was a member of the Phoenix Conference, the original IEs. They called them instructors back then, Lou Sanborn and Phil, and I think the Phoenix 12 they called them, if my number may be off. But Phil Getch was one of those. His wife Carol was also an IE, and they're both master riggers and have been lifelong friends. And Carol was a wonderful jumper. Their kids were great jumpers, and they lived up in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. And I was in East Troy, kind of a competitive club, but Phil was the ASO, and he would come down to East Troy and give us lessons, and he taught me how to fly a PC. He taught me that there was a science in this sport. And I learned a lot from Phil, and he was an IE, and I wanted to become one, and I went and studied my butt off. I bought Pointer's book, and I took the test with Jack Johnson, because I'd already become a rigger. I did that down in Champaign, Illinois, with Randy Iverson. That was strange. He was a Sky Knight. One of those guys that steal the keys and jump out of the airplane. Anyway, I got my rigger's ticket, and then I took my IE test and passed it the first time I took it. And became an instructor examiner. And built a loft in my basement in Belvedere, Illinois, where I lived. And had the FAA came out and gave me my master rigger rating at that loft. And that was fun, of course. It's nice to deal with the FAA when you know more than they do. And so you pass your tests easy that way. I started the club at Northern Illinois University with them and helped the club get started. And I was working for Chrysler at the time. I started out at Chrysler on the line as an hourly employee, and 4 weeks later I became a foreman, and 6 months later I was general foreman, and a year later I was utility superintendent. And that lasted about 2 months, and they moved me into engineering, which is where I should have been anyway. But they wanted me to prove myself as a mass production automotive person, and I love the big automobile business. It was more fun than, almost as much fun as skydiving. Chrysler transferred me, promoted me to entry-level executive, and moved me to Detroit. I left the family. I had formed the family before that, and we had built the first 8-way outside of California in Hinckley. It was funny, we were going to do it in Rochelle, where I lived. We had this twin beach. I was flying nighttime charters. I'm a commercial instrument multi-engine pilot, and I was flying Part 135 out of Rockford, true aviation outside of Rockford. We were flying parts for GM and Chrysler all over the East Coast. And I'd engineer at Chrysler in the daytime and go fly at night. And we're flying D-18s and 402 Cessnas and twin Comanches. And by the way, it wasn't a CR Comanche. That's what I took my multi-test in. What a monster. Anyway, so I had access. We had an aero taxi there, a guy named Rich Gibson, who was a skydiver, and he was flying, aero taxi was flying charters for Chrysler, and they had a D-18. And I talked Richie into taking some skydivers up. And we met at Rochelle, but the Hinckley crew, Louis Ogg and Alm and Bohr and those guys didn't show up. So we took the D-18, flew over to Hinckley, landed and said, "Get in the damn plane, we're going to do relative work." And we got Jerry Tyson, was the cameraman. He said, "I want Helen to go." And we said, "Okay, Helen, you can go. You got to carry 20 pounds of weight. And Sherman, you got to pin her." So we did that, and Jerry filmed it. It was the first 8-way ever made outside of California. My SCR is 161, and Helen's was 160. Helen, Tyson, Tozer, Sickler, Frazier, Warlock was her maiden name, and a wonderful lady, a wonderful skydiver. I wished I knew where she was today. Anyway, Helen continued with the family. The family went to Zephyr Hills the first year and won the meet with a 9-way. I got the picture. It shows 9 heads and 20 feet. Helen couldn't break the slot. She was too lightweight and couldn't get enough force coming in, and we didn't know much back then about driving in, and people thought hand tracking worked. Some people did, and it didn't. So we went to Zephyr Hills and won that first year. Boy, did that stoke us, but we didn't make a 10-way. So we got permission to use Bong Air Force Base, and we practiced, tried to make a 10-way for the next year, and we never made it. We could get 9s every time, but we could never get a 10-way. And this is in the wintertime over Bong Air Force. I remember Russ Petty had a pink jumpsuit. We got 6 inches of snow on the ground, and this is an old abandoned Air Force base between Milwaukee and Chicago, right near the coast of the river, of the lake. Anyway, I saw Russ Petty go by me one day. I just pulling and opening my stringing out, and Russ goes by me in this pink jumpsuit, and he's fighting a spinning malfunction. And I watched him straight down. You know, when you're over snow, your depth perception is gone. So I'm watching this pink jumpsuit and this spiraling PC going down and he landed. He somehow got a reserve out, and he landed on his back in a spread eagle position, and I'm coming straight down on him with the PC, and I can never forget the image of him laying in the snow.